Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to taper a brush in Procreate to make it feel more like a real watercolor brush or ink brush. A tapered brush is really useful for lettering, florals and line work because it lets you create strokes that start thin and become larger and then naturally fade out, just like a real paintbrush would. It's great for drawing petals, leaves and soft brush textures with a more organic feel to it. Last week, we created a custom watercolor brush together in Procreate. If you haven't seen that video yet and would like to learn how to make your own, I've linked it in the description so you can try it out today. Now I'm going to show you how to adjust that brush for a tapered effect and also how to adjust the default Procreate watercolor brush to give it a better flow. Here is the default watercolor brush, and although it's interesting and creates interesting textures, the edges are quite blunted. It doesn't feel like a realistic watercolor brush on the surface. So we're going to go into the settings with each of those brushes and we're going to adapt them and change them so that you get a far more painterly brush. Okay, let's first start with the custom watercolor brush we made in last week's video. Go into your brush library. I saved mine under my painting brush set and I called it Dee's watercolor brush. Open up the settings. The first thing we'll do is go to shape. At the moment, this is my shape. It's quite a rough shape. I want to just make it a little bit cleaner around the edges. So I'm going to select Edit, Import, Source Library, and I'm going to choose the medium hard shape there. Okay, already that smooths out the edges. I'm then going to go to taper. I'm going to have all these settings checked. You can pause it here if you want to make sure you have the same settings. I'm then going to select link tip sizes here. And then I'm going to choose a classic taper for a more natural effect. Now let's test it. As you can see, we get beautiful flowing strokes that start off narrow and become wider as they move on, perfect for leaves and petals and flowers and lettering. Now let's adjust Procreate's default watercolor brush. In your brush library, you're going to go to the painting brush set, you're going to go to the watercolor brush, the default watercolor brush. You have your brush studio settings open. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to the shape. I'm then going to go edit. And once again, source library. And I'm going to choose the medium hard brush. Select done. Then go to taper. Now I'm going to adjust the pressure taper on either side here. I'm going to say link tip sizes. I'm going to increase the size to 100% for a very sharp edge. And I'm going to do the same for touch taper down here, link tip sizes, and eventually classic taper. Okay, let's test that out. Let's try a different color. And there you go. Your standard watercolor brush now has a natural taper to it, which is great. One important thing to mention is that if you are going to make changes to default brushes on Procreate, make sure you duplicate the brush before you make those changes, because once you've saved it, you may forget what those original settings were, and you may want that particular brush for a certain reason in the future. Now that we've adjusted our brush, let's test it with a simple flower. Now that we've adjusted our custom brush, let's test it with a very simple flower. I'm using light pressure at the start of each petal and then gently lifting off to create a soft tapered stroke. I'm completely okay with overlapping some of those strokes because I can use the smudge tool set as my custom watercolor brush to blend the colors naturally. This gives the petals a more natural watercolor-like feel. You can see how the tapering makes each petal look delicate and organic, fading at the edges just like real watercolor would. I'm painting this on a watercolor surface which is available to my Patreon members. By adjusting the pressure slightly, I can make some petals thicker and some thinner, adding a bit of variation to the flower. I can also layer colors on top of one another, and this creates a lovely translucent, authentic watercolor feeling. This is a great way to create quick, effortless florals, whether you're sketching, making digital watercolor art, or just playing around with different brushes. And that's it. A simple, soft flower using our newly tapered brush. Now you know how to taper a brush in Procreate, whether you're adjusting a custom brush or tweaking the default watercolor brush. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Want more Procreate resources? Join my Patreon membership for exclusive brush sets, color palettes, and templates, plus a great community to support you on your art journey. Links in the description below. Thanks so much for watching and happy creating.